Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. God, where has 2013 gone? This year has just flown by, and just a couple more weeks, it's going to be 2014. I mean, I just remember just like yesterday where we were having, Happy Mayan Fool's Day and talking about the end of the world, which didn't happen. And we're still here moving forward and trotting along into 2014. But tonight we're going to have a great show. In the first hour, we're going to be talking to Xaviant Haze about evidence of ancient aliens in Egypt. And in the second hour, we're going to be speaking with our good friend Lyle Blackburn about the Lizard Man of Bishopville, South Carolina. But don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, energy medicine sessions, and clairvoyant readings. So do go to soulhealer.com, give me a call, drop me an email, and set up a time for an appointment. Especially with the new year coming, you can start the new year off right. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. Couple of quick announcements. First of all, one of the things I wanted to mention is next year, in the early part of the next year, I'll be coming out with a full-length documentary. It's being called Icon, Deconstructing the Archetypes of the Ancients. And so I'll keep you filled in on what's going on with that, but we'll be making some DVDs and hopefully set it up for that pay-per-view or download from Amazon and some other outlets that you can check it out. Also, March 22nd through 30th, Ancient Mysteries International, AM 14 at Angkor Wat. It'll be myself, Stephen Knapp, Sasha and Janet Lesson, and Bruce Cunningham all hosting a conference in Angkor Wat, Cambodia. The dates again is March 22nd through 30th. For more information, go to ancientmysteriesinterntional.com. And if you've missed an episode of Just Energy Radio, don't forget you can go to the Just Energy Radio website. That's www.justenergyradio.com, or our YouTube page. On the website, you can sign up for our newsletter to be kept informed of who's coming up. On the YouTube page, please do subscribe to the channel. It keeps growing by leaps and bounds every week, and I just appreciate everyone that goes and checks out the shows. And as always, you can listen to Just Energy Radio here live on the Inception Radio Network every Thursday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also check out the archives here. So let me tell you a little bit about Xaviant and get him on the air. Xaviant Haze is an alternative history researcher and activist of ancient manuscripts. He travels the world exploring and documenting his finds on lost civilizations, giants, ancient aliens, and myths of the pre-Diluvian world. Xaviant is the co-author of Suppressed History of America and author of Aliens in Ancient Egypt, and currently completed his debut novel, The Fables of Flynn. He hosts one of the most complete online metaphysical libraries in the world with links and resources to all major works in the field. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio the author of Aliens in Ancient Egypt, Xaviant Haze. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. It's Xaviant Haze.
Xaviant. And just, you have joined the club of people's names that I can't pronounce. And so just please forgive me in advance for having no phonics skills at all, because that's pretty much what it's about. No phonics skills at all.
Phonically challenged there.
Well, one of the things that I learned, and I just thought that I was a retard, which sometimes I am, but that people that are dyslexic have no phonics skills. And
Whoa.
I'm dyslexic and I have no phonics skills. And so, it is what it is.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Well, and I only found out from talking to some other people that they made the comment that they had no phonics skills too. And it was like, hey, that's good because I don't. I'm just glad that, I'm not so impacted by it that I can't write and do what I do, except pronounce people's names wrong. So I just try to avoid it personally as much as possible. Anyway.
Well, you're doing fine.
What got you interested in studying ancient Egyptian culture, and this whole genre that you've dug yourself into?
I've always been fascinated by ancient Egypt, mostly as a teenager. I saw the show In Search Of. That made a huge impact on me with the pyramids and the Sphinx. So I just been kind of self-studying and, a little bit on my own ever since a teenager. I read Chariots of the Gods and started reading about the Book of the Dead, and I read Norman Mailer's fiction work called Ancient Evenings. It's a tremendous, tremendous book. It had a huge impact on me. And I just watched every documentary and I could. But what really got me open was Dr. Carmen Bolter's Pyramid Codes documentary series. It's 5 parts, and she showed stuff that I had never seen before. Most people hadn't. And talked to Hakim, who's one of the ancient wisdom teachers, from the indigenous teachings. I guess where his bloodline goes back, the oral histories. So watching that really kind of just put all the pieces together since I've been studying on my own as a teenager. And the book initially we were supposed to do together, but a lot of crazy stuff went down, and she had to back out of it.
You still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You just kind of stopped talking. It was like, oh no, I hope I didn't lose you.
I was trying to give her a break to see if you want to say something.
No, we're all good. I mean, I've had Carmen on the show before. She's just amazing, with her discoveries and finds and, all the weird stuff that she comes up with. It's like, where'd you find that? Because you're right. They don't show half the stuff that she covers in, her documentaries. And it just makes you wonder why they keep it just such a big secret.
Yeah, I mean, she lost her job basically because of the stuff she was finding and willing to talk about.
Okay. So it seems like the history of Egypt takes us back to a golden age, quote unquote. But how far back in time do you think this golden age actually was?
I think there's been more than one golden age. And since the nature of the universe is cyclical, they have come and gone. For ancient Egypt, there was probably the most important golden age is before the floods, and especially one that was tropical. And if as long as the continents are shaped the way they are and arranged, I believe that the Giza Plateau and the pyramid structures have always kind of remained there. And it probably goes back, who knows, hundreds of thousands, even millions of years. It seems like a beacon for space. Like if it flew over, it seems to be the one calling sign that's kind of lasted. And because, all the mythologies talk about golden ages and, sky gods and how far it goes back. And I think Egypt, that landmass, that certain area where the pyramids are, is extremely ancient. And there have been many golden ages, I think. and many forms of different alien species visiting as well.
So do you think that the pyramids, you're talking about cycles of time, and then you kind of threw the flood in there. So do you think the flood was a dividing line between one cycle of time and, I would say, our current cycle of time?
Yeah, like basically the last great flood, it was a divider since, everything that we've experienced in the past probably 12,000 years, or anywhere from 8 to 12, even maybe 33. But I believe that the early initial old structures, because the oldest part of the pyramid in the Giza Plateau is the bottom. That's where the megalithic stuff is that you can't fit a razor through and so forth. And when the early explorers in the 1800s, like Charles Galactic Smith, broke into there and started getting inside the chambers, they talked about all the sea salt they had found. And now we know through science that there's seashells and plenty mixed in within the pyramid field. So, to me that means it was obviously there during the last great cataclysm.
That's something that I always try to ask people. And I'm going to throw it out at you since we're talking about pyramids and you brought the topic up. I find it interesting that when the explorers were there in the 1800s, that they had to break into the pyramid. It's like, so if looters got there and stole everything out of the pyramid, then why did they have to break into it?
Exactly, because they're always in sacred places. There's, even before they got into it, I'm sure other people got into it, and there's probably nothing there. And maybe got put back together, and then, and then 100 years later, someone else got into it and found the same thing, nothing. I think, the idea that they were, for the kings or burial chambers is just absolute nonsense.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you think the pyramids were used for? I mean, there's a lot of different lines of thought, and I have, ones that I think sound more reasonable than others, but what's your belief on what they were used for?
I believe the initial pyramid field, the whole Giza Plateau, was used to uplift consciousness, to keep man in an elevated state of creativity and into nature. It's basically what kind of beings we are, right? So I think that was the initial purpose, because whoever built them understood the cycles of time and how there's going to be golden age, dark age, silver age, and there's going to be cataclysm. It just happens. So I think those are the remains of something that always tried to keep us elevated. And I think during the last cataclysm was probably the last time it decommissioned. There might have been some. And there are still some energies there, because, you can recharge your battery and stuff. There are definitely still some things there, because they work in a combination of water, and the different types of stone. So that's what I believe. I think they were something to uplift, keep mankind in a conscious, creative state. And I think Pharaoh Akhenaten was the last to kind of understand this ancient teaching. And, that's probably one of the main reasons, plus a few other reasons, of course, that he was erased from history. What is your opinion on what do you think that they were used for?
I mean, I think that, I kind of go more along with the Chris Dunn theory that it was some kind of machine, microwave type generator machine.
A machine, some sort of machine.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
What type of machine is the question, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess we're on the same page. The microwave. I mean, I used to work for a company that made microwave repeaters, and the inside of the box that we sold looked kind of like the inside of the pyramid. I mean, that was kind of where I went, and then Chris Dunn said the exact same thing, and I'm like, hey, great minds think alike. So is that why we're so dumb now? Okay, that was kind of blunt, but because these machines don't work anymore?
That, and then just the society that sprung in the aftermath of, the deluge. Basically, we live instead of a matriarchal society that's in tune with the feminine and the original teachings of ancient Egypt, women rule, and the man being in tune with the feminine and the masculine. Those things were replaced by a warlike society and king rule, and it's even scarier because we're halfway through the New World Order, and we're approaching the points in time that the transhumanists, like the transhumanists and Agenda 21, and when the robots, taking the jobs and then becoming aware, and Skynet, all this stuff. We're heading to that, and that absolutely to have that, you have to have a dumbing down of society, which is what we have been experiencing probably for the last 40, 50 years, especially with the invention of television, the greatest brainwashing and control ever conceived. So, yeah, there's a lot de-evolving for sure is what we are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I want to ask you a question on something you mentioned, about the flood. And I was just having a whole conversation about the dating of the flood, because while there are a lot of people that believe, that a global flood happened, 11.5 thousand years ago, give or take, there doesn't seem to be any evidence. And so what's your take on that? I mean, have you looked for any evidence to support, that dating?
Not really. I think there's been more than one flood, and that's the thing. Just because I think all of these ancient megalithic structures are all before the flood. Someone thinks they found Atlantis or something in the water, but that's just other part of a lost culture. These are all parts of that lost culture before the flood. And I'm sure there's floods before that and floods before that. So the actual dating of the flood, I think there's scientists argue over, what is the correct date. I don't think it really matters, honestly. And no, I haven't looked into it fully. I probably should look into it a little bit more just to understand. But from what my research tells me and what I've been kind of doing, there seems to be, like you said, an agreement that there were floods. It's just what's the timetable?
I mean, I couldn't find not that I spent hours or days and days looking for evidence at that 11.5 thousand years ago, but it wasn't obvious. But anyway, we're just going to move along. But there was actually already a question in the chat room, and it was pretty good. So I'm going to scroll back here. And this is from Billy, New York. Do you believe that the pyramids of Giza were built by a civilization that existed before the ancient Egyptians built the other pyramids?
Absolutely, because that's what they say themselves. Like the whole King's List, if you're going to go to college and get a degree in Egyptology, you're basically going off Manetho's Palermo Stone, which is the pharaonic list, right? And on that same list, what they don't teach, and they want to know, is that on that same exact list is all the pre-pharaonic kings and sky gods that came before, and that's what they attributed to leaving, the pyramids and all, and the Sphinx and the Abydos and the ancient megalithic structures. A lot of the pyramid stuff is, like recreations that are horrible. You could tell, like, which ones, were created way later. As opposed to the original, the pyramid field, the pyramids, the temple, the Assyrian complex, all the stuff that's really at the bottom. And 70% of Egypt is still underneath the sand. So can you imagine what is really, really under there if all the old stuff is at the bottom?
So because if you look at what Egyptologists say, they talk about, like step pyramids being first, then the bent pyramid, and then the pyramids on the Giza Plateau. So you're saying that that's not right, that the pyramids on the Giza Plateau were first, and then we just tried emulating them.
Exactly, because there's stuff in the Sphinx, like in the hallway of the Sphinx. I don't know if you have a copy of the book, but there's color pictures in there. You can see how these massive megalithic stones, and they're just kind of like bent and melted, like they looked like they had been reformed, like melted and shaped into place. It's ridiculous. And also in Abydos, one of those ancient parts of ancient Egypt is Abydos. That's where like Osiris You know, they used to, supposedly they had his head, and they used to have all these parades, you know, with his head every year. Was it like a helmet? So like a space commander's alien's helmet? I mean, they you know, made this grand spectacle because it remained. Who knows? But for them to say that the step period and all this is ridiculous, and they know it because they can't even recreate Stonehenge. And it'd be far easier to recreate anything, and they can't even do that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they can't recreate or do or even think about doing. I mean, I always just think of like that giant stone at Baalbek that they can't even pick up. And, exactly. You know, and our ancestors put it 20, you know, ones of comparable size, 20 feet in the air. It's like, answer me that.
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking about, you know, and how funny that those ancient megalithic structures have no pyramids, I mean, not pyramids, but hieroglyphics or any markings on them. Some of them actually have, like, laser cut markings, you know. That's a whole other thing that Chris brought up in one of his last books, The Lost Technologies. It was extremely fascinating, you know, what are these saw marks in the stone, you know, how is that even possible? And there's a few places in Egypt that you can see them.
So have you been to Egypt?
I have not.
Because last week I had, it was last week, I had Brian Forrester on, and he just got back with Chris Dunn, and he was saying that there are tool marks everywhere.
Everywhere, right. I saw the videos, so he's a friend of mine. I'm supposed to go in April. I was actually supposed to go, like, right when the revolution happened. Like, literally, we were the next day in the airport, and all that went down, and really got scared. So, but, yeah, in April, I'm going to see it, and I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going to take the indigenous, his son, Akhenaten's son, the same people that showed Brian Forrester and Chris Dunn around. I'm going to be going with him, so.
Cool.
Yes, and then also, like, hopefully I'm hoping in November to head to Peru and, you know, see what's over there, because that's a whole other, I mean, those are basically, they have something like Pumapunku, right, where all these crazy megalithic stones are spread out and they look like jigsaw Lego pieces, like massive, you know. They have, some of them have, like, where the T-clamp marks, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, in Abydos in ancient Egypt, they have the same thing. Like, there's megalithic stones that have the same type of clamp. So, and I have sketchbooks from Chapez, who's, you know, one of the early illustrators of the ancient world in the 1800s. I have his sketchbooks from, you know, the 1850s, where you could go through, and I found 3 other places, according to the art he left, in Persepolis, in Iran, and Crete, and some places in ancient Greece that also have the T-clamp marks.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that just has to mean they're super old and connected somehow, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what science and academia, you know, say, just look at that.
Well, I'm sure they look at it, but then they just ignore it.
Exactly. You know, they ignore it. It's convenient for them to say, nope. It's like the giant issue. You know, you have half of the hieroglyphs in Egypt show the giant pharaoh. And, you know, there was a club promoter in the 80s that made friends with some Bedouin tribe, and they gave him a finger that was, you know, 12 inches long of a mummified giant that the family had, and, you know, kept in their possession for however many years. And I think last year, the first time, the German magazine, The Spiegel or something, I can't remember what it was, but they published it for the first time, images of the giant mummified finger. It's crazy. You know, obviously they would like to have it, but who really knows how much of that is on the black market? I've seen for myself some giant stuff, like really crazy. So, and I wrote about a lot of this in my first book, The Suppressed History of America. You know, so it's, you know, I have a whole blog post about conquistadors' encounters with giants. So that's a whole other topic and area of history that is really relevant. Yeah,
that they don't want to touch.
They don't want to touch.
You know, but kind of one of the areas that you go into is about aliens in antiquity. So what kind of evidence have you uncovered that leads you to believe that there were aliens way back when? And I'm talking about in the deepest antiquity, and we'll kind of come forward to and I probably won't say it right, but you never know. The Shemsu Hor. We'll come to them, but prior. Did I say it right?
No, yes, of course.
See, sometimes it comes out right.
Nailed it. Well, to me, it's one, you have the elongated skulls, and not the binded ones that they always try to debunk you with, which is just ridiculous. And the elongated skulls they found in Egypt as well. And when they found the elongated skulls in Egypt, they also found something called the schist disc, like a lobe disc, and it looks like some sort of helicopter propeller or something. It looks like a machine part. It's in the museum in Cairo. It's black and creatively carved. It doesn't even make sense. And you have all the mythologies, and you have basically, as I talk about reading, you can read the Bible and like the book of Ezekiel, and you kind of, interpret it like they're talking about. Because man, the ancient astronaut theory, of course, man back then didn't understand what he was seeing, so he couldn't understand technology, right? So I applied that as well in the ancient Egyptian writings, and it's incredible. It's all about it, basically. It's like Battlestar Galactica. So you can see how, without, because a lot of people's problem is they go off Zachariah Sitchin's work, right? And they just kind of, there's no original thinking. It's just basically they base it all off his stuff, like regurgitating. James Bundonicki. And to me, it's like, well, if I look at the ancient Sumerian libraries that are online, there's a few of them. I think Oxford has them, Chicago, Oriental Institute has like the translations. They don't say the same thing that Sitchin translated, right? So you either have to be, either he was writing some science fiction, or they are, covering up something. So you can't really take the so-called translations, because things get lost in translation. But what you can do is just look at the art. And to me, the truth is in the art. Because when I see ancient art from all over the world, whether it's Egypt or Persia or, anywhere, if there's somebody flying in the air, some kind of chariot, right? And same with Egypt. You get the sun disk. There's always the chariot. And there's so many hieroglyphs. People flying around. It seems to be all over ancient history. And the question is how long, how many different species, and for how many different millions of years has this been going on?
Probably a lot. I mean, I think one of my favorite, I'm going to say experiencer, because that's like the new way of saying, people that have had encounters, is Moses. He's my total favorite. It's like, I would love to. Actually, I was taking this class, and it was the first day, and they went around and said, if you were going to go have a cup of coffee with somebody, who would that be? And it could be anybody. And I picked Moses, and, and you had to tell why. And I said, because I'd want to go up to the top of that mountain and find out what really happened. I mean, because that just seems like a UFO encounter classic out of the Today playbook, what he experienced and what the people there experienced.
That's what I wrote. I mean, clearly that's the whole Exodus. I mean, there's like the UFO night with the light just kind of guiding the way, I think 100% that's what it was.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, there's a passage in there, I think, in Exodus where it says, who are these that fly, how's it go? Who are these that fly in the heavens and has doves to their windows? It's really profound. It's describing flying, So yeah, the whole, ancient, I think most of the ancient, that's what I'm saying, like all the ancient writings are talking about this. We can get into the Indian mythologies, and it's all about flying around the Vimanas and space wars, and so I think myths are based on reality at some point in time.
Well, I mean, in Indian mythology, they're everywhere. They're just blatant about it, but even today, they're not shy about it.
No, like we're retarded for still being afraid, or to talk about it openly, or to accept it, or whatever. It's funny because every movie that Hollywood makes is the aliens are the bad guys, and they're going to destroy us, and they have to be afraid. So
I don't know. There was that Cowboys versus Aliens movie, which I thought was bad. Because you would think those people would be afraid, and they were like, "Oh, look, there are some aliens flying around in a ship, but we don't have ships yet, and I'm not afraid."
It was horrible. A movie I saw as a kid that really freaked me out was Fire in the Sky.
See, I've never seen that.
Oh my God, it was D.B. Sweeney. It's based on a true story. It was like a little indie movie. That movie would freak me out as a kid, as a teenager at least. You should look it up. Fire in the Sky.
Well, that's the Travis Wall.
Yeah, I think so.
Walter.
Travis. Yeah.
I know Travis. Except I can't think of his last name in this moment. So, yeah. But okay, so let's get back to your book. Okay, it's probably on Netflix because you can only see movies that are like 50 years old on Netflix.
This is cool.
Okay, so in your book, you talk about how civilization was born out of the destruction. I love the way that you phrase this. How civilization was born out of the destruction of the last, as described on the Palermo Stone. So can you share that with the listeners? Especially about the Palermo Stone, because, I haven't read a translation of what that stone says. So does it actually go into talking about the previous civilization and this destruction that happened?
Yeah, it talks about the king. Palermo Stone lists the kings, so it's the pharaonic kings list, and then the pre-pharaonic kings list, like the Sky King and the Cataclysm. So that's on the Palermo Stone, and basically, what our world kind of rose from Akhenaten's time, like the Aramana period, because the Egyptian, during his reign, that's when, where you get the Shemsu-Hor from. And the Shemsu-Hor, nobody seems to know who they were. They were just this mysterious race that appeared and ruled like Egypt from behind, like the Amun priesthood and the pharaoh. So the pharaoh would act like as the puppet pharaoh, like the president is. He's a puppet. Then you have the Amun priesthood, which were the bankers, basically. They were the ones who made sure everyone was in fear of not going to the underworld properly, so they had to buy all these trinkets and stuff, right? Like when Martin Luther, he fought against the church, for people make church charging a quarter for, getting your little paper so you go to heaven, right? So Akhenaten was kind of the same. He was the pharaoh for this time. He was like a Justin Bieber because his grandfather was Thutmose III, and Thutmose III had a genuine UFO encounter. It's written on the walls of Karnak. Now he was made, given an opportunity to be a huge, famous ruler, and that's when a lot of the war stuff started going on. So Akhenaten grew up within this, this tight-knit, structured rule. With the Shemsu-Hor was rolling behind the background on the priesthood, and he was like the teenage celebrity pharaoh, and he was really popular. Everybody loved him. But to me, his grandfather's UFO encounter had something to do with the Shemsu-Hor and the Reptilian. Now, I'm not, when you talk about the Reptilians, it's such a controversial topic, and it's for me, that was the funnest part of the book, right? To look at this and do research on it and see what could be what, because I like to ask questions, and my books are, I'm not trying to shove my opinion down your throat. I'm just saying, hey, maybe this happened or maybe this didn't happen. Right? Like, I have an open mind and maybe this could happen. So I try to give so many scenarios. And so the reptilian one was the best part. But it clearly shows to me that whoever the Shemsu Hor was, there was a reptilian influence there. And people always want to say, well, they're from Draconia, which could be possible. I think, like, scientists are saying now that the reptilians are, because they're finding new worlds everywhere, right? Like water worlds and twin binary sun systems. And there's so many, like, habitable lands, universes and worlds they're finding way out in space. And some scientists are saying that, well, if logically, the first type of things that will develop could be dinosaurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's possible that dinosaurs could develop and these other planets become, evolve into, like, reptilians and travel through space, right? I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Also, the other way of looking at it is on Earth, like, just like they developed over there, they could develop here, right? The Troodon dinosaur had the biggest brain that the scientists have found, that all, according to all of the other brains in the same kind of species, with the dinosaurs, the Troodon dinosaur had the biggest. Like, it was growing the fastest. And if it had survived during the cataclysmic event that destroyed the dinosaurs, which didn't destroy all of them, right? Because we still have, like, lizards and stuff. So if they didn't die out completely, it's logical that based on evolution, their brain would have, advanced tremendously faster than any human or Neanderthal or anybody else. So if that's true, they could have developed and been intelligent and upright. Who knows how many millions of years ago? Maybe they were visited by another form of them, or some other alien species or humanoid species. So I think that because in all the mythologies, and even in ancient Egypt, the reptilian figure, the upright reptilian, in ancient Hebrew, and and the jinn, you have the jinn of the Middle Eastern folklore. And even in the Mayans, they talk about the serpent giving them knowledge, right? So I think that there was definitely a reptilian influence, a real one, back in ancient Egypt, for sure. And I think that Akhenaten, who kind of grew up within this system, had to have been aware of it. And at some point, he changed. He became, he basically figured out the scam, right? And, put him out of business. And he put the banks out of business. He put the priesthood, the Shemsu Hor, all of it. And he created this magnificent art, which is what we have from his period, the Armada period. So that's, the art stands out, unique in history, right? So we could see, like, the elongated skulls of his daughters. And even his bloodline, they claim was the Hyksos bloodline, which is a whole other alien topic. Like, they don't even know. They were referred to aliens, and they don't even, they can't tell where that race actually came from. So I think in his art, he was kind of showing, with his daughters having elongated skulls, maybe he was hybrid, maybe he had something, maybe that's a reptilian trait, or who knows, but
I mean, when you start looking at mythology, it seems like the reptilians, and I'm assuming you're talking about the half man, half fish, snake, whatever, right, people.
Exactly. I think they were in understanding and experimenting with hybrid technology and genetic, engineering, right? Because that's all part of ancient Egyptian history too. And there's so many hieroglyphs and rare stuff that I have in the book showing, stuff that looks like dinosaurs with wings. These are ancient, and that's parallels to the first sketches they're doing, some of the first stuff they found. They're documenting stuff, which now is lost, unfortunately. So I think all that, when I see the hieroglyphs, I see basically, energy numbers or energies, like how to do stuff mathematically and someone, an electrician, has certain things he has to know. That's kind of what I think they're trying to relate, you know.
So do you think they were the first and or only group of aliens that are here or were here?
Not at all. I think there's been so many, and I don't think the physical reptilian has survived. I think that died out a while ago. Maybe at some point the bloodline is still around, but I don't think it has the ability to, you know, to actually keep reptilian traits. However, there might be some sort of interdimensional presence. You know, people have seen them, supposedly. I never have, so I can't say. But I think, you know, it's the yin and yang. Like, if there's good, there has to be bad. Like, I believe at high levels there's evil presence, and this is why the world is so corrupt and so wicked and just so messed up. But also know that if there's a evil presence or evil alien being, then there's also a good alien beings, and they're also here as well. And I believe that with cases, you know, of like UFOs tampering with our new capabilities, right? Sometimes they'll show up and, you know, turn off big stuff, right? I think that those are benevolent, those are good beings. So, and I think there's probably a whole bunch of other ones watching as well, and who knows what's going on above the atmosphere. I've seen documentaries, you know, from clips from the European Space Agency that it's crazy. It looks like there are already little wars going on up there, and how much of it is our technology? Like, you know, there's a hacker, Gary McKinnon, I think, who, you know, hacking the Pentagon and discovered a whole U.S. Space Force operations and stuff. So, you know, and they have to use the technology that they've, like UFOs, and they've been developing this in secret for probably 60 years now. So just because you see an actual UFO doesn't mean it's flown by aliens. Most of the time it's probably flown by the Air Force in secret blackout projects.
So do you think the reptilians are bad, evil, negative, you know, whatever word you want to tie to that? Or do you think that they have just a bad rap in today's society?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it could be both those things. They definitely have a bad rap for sure. You know, they're ridiculed. You know, I can't say for sure because, you know, you hear about the stories of the reptilian shootout in Dulce, New Mexico, and underground bases, and, you know, I can only speak from my personal experience, and since I've never ever seen one, you know, I can't really say for sure. I believe that it's possible they could be interdimensional, they could be bad, they could be good. I don't know for sure. There's definitely a negative alien force, for sure. Absolutely. A negative, wicked presence that's alien in nature. What its physical form is, if it has one, I do not know.
I never met an alien that I trusted personally, so... Okay, so...
Most of the time, so.
Huh?
I feel like an alien most of the time, you know?
Okay, so you were talking about an earlier civilization before the flood. You know, but could the view of ETs actually be remnants of this prior culture?
Yeah, sure. I think, you know, probably a few other cultures that preceded that as well, you know? Yeah, to me, like, where does the giants come in? Like, how do they play into this, right? Because I think they're more recent than like a real alien presence, you know? But the reptilian were walking upright as well, and they're heavy in history as well. So I think then there's the gray. Who are the grays? What is that? And, you know, and did you ever talk to Lloyd Pye?
No, I have not ever gotten Lloyd on the show.
Well, he died recently. And
he died. Wait a minute. I hadn't heard that. I know that he was sick.
Yeah,
but he died. Actually...
Yep. He's rest in peace.
I'm going to have to go check that out.
Yeah, they announced it a couple days ago, so it's really sad. You know, he did the research in the Star Child School, and he was kind enough to give me permission to use some of the color photos that he has. So in my book, I have a whole part with talking about the Star Child School and showing the pictures. And there's one picture. When I was signing books at the Miami Book Fair, and I sold out like Saturday afternoon, like really fast. When anyone looked at the picture where it shows the Star Child's skull and then the other, like a human skull, and the thickness in the Star Child's skull is, at least 3 inches more. It just blows their mind. And it blew my mind. The picture is ridiculous. You can clearly see that the skull is not human. It's totally different. So he did some tremendous work, and, he will be missed.
Mm-hmm. Oops. This is what I get for, touching my computer. Now I got all kinds of weird stuff going on. No, go away, go away. He died on the 10th. That's what I was looking up. So just 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
A couple days, yeah.
Yeah. Well, blessings to him and his family. That's hard. Just hard. Yeah. Let's see. So...
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you been to Egypt?
No.
No? What got you interested in this topic and stuff you'd like to talk about?
Actually, my first love in life before getting interested in metaphysics was archaeology, and I actually wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid. So I was like a kind of a nerdy, very cool, geeky person who read my way through the archaeology and anthropology department at the library before I was 12. And so, one of the super coolest things that I did as an adult, because there were those defining moments, was I discovered that the La Brea Tar Pit was actually in downtown Los Angeles, and I got to go there, and I got tar and took it home with me. That and meeting the amazing Kreskin, those were two, big things, that you don't think you're ever going to get to do, but you do. So,
wow,
so that was cool.
I as a kid, I got to go to the La Brea Tar Pits as well with my grandmother, and it totally blew my mind. Because I love dinosaurs. When I was early, before I got into understanding about Egypt or whatever, before I kind of became aware of this, I'd always loved dinosaurs. Dinosaurs to me are just, even now, they're so crazy. What are they?
Mm-hmm. No, I was big on the theory of evolution. And I went to Catholic school, so it wasn't really popular with the nuns. Yes, a rebel from the beginning. So these Shem-Suhor, how much interaction do you think they had with humanity? Do you think they just interacted with the pharaoh or the kings? Do you think that they interbred with that bloodline? Because there was always this big thing about keeping the bloodline pure. How deep do you think the interaction went?
Oh, that's exactly what happened. It was they always rolled behind the scenes, and there was always bloodlines, and they were breeding with their kings, the ones they chose, and that's because all of what we understand of the Masons, of the Templars, the Brotherhood, the secret societies, all that basically stems from the Shem-Suhor and the Brotherhood of the Serpent, and it always continued mystery traditions, underground basically, and it's changed over periods of time, and maybe even died out and restarted and relearned, who knows how many times, but thousands and thousands of years, and this has been going on. So I think that, for instance now, we all think the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, they obviously have a tremendous amount of power and influence. They kind of run the world, actually, but, who is behind them? Who don't you even know about? Who are they? That's what you should be concerned about. And I'm in Miami and South Beach, and I see, so much wealth, it's sickening. And then when you think about it, that's not even really, there's people beyond wealthy that you can even imagine, how's that even possible? What job pays that, what meet the new boss, famous robots, basically, 5,000-6,000 years ago.
one of the things that I like looking at, and I'm going to be starting a new book after the first of the year, looking at this question in more detail, but how much impact did that group have on our culture and what we ended up inheriting today? I mean, do you think that we really are a reflection of them or what they want us to believe, to be, not believe, but them, what they want us to be? Did that make sense?
They've been stirring, mankind in intervals since, for thousands of years. So they kind of, I think it's, when something is discovered, like, during the industrial age, when they figured out that they could have a worldwide monopoly with oil, right? And they probably now figured out the next 5 monopolies, they're going to have, and they're going to steer us towards, once they decide how to get rid of this last age, this current paradigm we're in. And I think they've always had that figured out, step by step. And if there came a time where, some went wrong or whatever, and we just delay it for a little while. But, yeah, I think, it's, being trapped in this planet, spinning through space, I think it's important that the individual recognizes his gifts, right? Because we all have gifts. We all, forget about the Illuminati and the power of aliens and the control and the Masons and, paying the rent and all that. Like, it's, there's things that are beyond your changing, Like, whatever they're going to do, they're going to do,
But what's the end game? What's the purpose of it all?
Well, there's many of them. I mean, for them, I think their ultimate end game for them is to turn this transhumanism, to turn this all into robots. And all these dumb us down to the point where robots replace us and humans are just basically on this prison planet, because by that time they figure out how to go to Mars and they could teleport or, use normal technology to get their bloodline to Mars. And you could have here the whole fake Spielberg-directed fake Mars mission, like, woohoo, and, everybody's going to be like, oh, cool, went to Mars, but actuality, nowhere. It's filmed in the studio. And the bloodline, they went to Mars, and they're set up on Mars because they know this planet is basically, left to the wolves, right? I mean, but Mother Earth, nature, might clean itself naturally. The poles might shift. After it might hit it, who knows? But they're definitely worried about this place and not wanting to be here because they're few and we are a lot. So I think their goal is definitely Mars for sure. And it doesn't matter, I mean, it matters that you're a good person and you do your gifts, you use your gifts, you be the best person you can do, and do what you're supposed to be doing. And that's it, because the universe, it's the power, basically the universe reacts to your thoughts and emotions. So if you hang with negative people and you're in a negative zone, that's what you're going to attract. When you're positive, you think positive, and you hang with positive people, you're positive. And basically you get back what you put out. So, and it works. It's just learning to apply it. And once you learn to apply it, sticking with it and making sure you understand karma and how the universe actually works. So you can kind of do anything you want to do. It's just you need to learn what it is and then apply it and do what you're supposed to be doing. Not everybody can save the world,
Okay. I'm not even sure where to go with that. So, I'll just go on. So I'm guessing, based on what you're saying, because we were talking about these aliens in antiquity, but it sounds like what you're saying is that they are still here and they are still controlling things.
Of course, yeah. Maybe it's a different breed. Who knows? But there's definitely an alien presence that controls. And we're at the mercy of this, no matter what, no matter how you look at it. But I think they're losing the battle, and they won't win because I think good always trumps. So, right, it's the yin and yang. Obviously, the good and evil have to exist. We live in a crazy, dangerous world, right? Every time you step aside, it's nuts. people are more zombied out than ever. It's like literally The Walking Dead out there. You know, there's no communication, there's no human interaction really. It's basically everybody's on their phone, smartphone, tapping away, or lost, or pilled out to the point of oblivion. That's a whole other topic. You know, that's a sad issue. You know, you're giving kids pills, ridiculous. You know, and it's bananas out there. It's really bad, but you can't let that affect what you're supposed to be doing.
So, I mean, I know we're talking about the reptilians, but I'm just going to throw this in. So what about, you know, like the Galactic Federation? I mean, do you believe that there's a Galactic Federation, and do you believe that there is a war going on between the reptilians and this other group?
I believe there is a Galactic Federation, actually. That's, you know, there's a federation, probably who knows how many different types of alien species, and you know, I'm not sure about reptilian wars or any of that, but I definitely think there is a federation that has our best interests. Because to me, Earth is like Disneyland for aliens, right? I mean, I've always believed that. You know, it's probably like school trips for like different alien species come here and check out Earth because, you know, it's so crazy. So, and who's to say? Maybe there is intergalactic wars that above, you know, that we're not allowed to see or know about. Maybe. Who knows? I mean, I would find that logical.
So, do you think that there are other groups other than the reptilians controlling what's going on the Earth, or do you think that they are the ones that are here controlling what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know if it's reptilians that are in control, or you know, or if they are wicked or they're good. I'm not sure. I know that I can't say for sure what form of aliens species is controlling what, or is negative or positive. I believe there is more than one, you know, and there's more than likely probably a reptilian presence as well, whether that's interdimensional, you know, or they're here visiting. I mean, maybe they're the ones, maybe they are the good guys. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, so go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
And I'm going to ask you, this came out of the chat room, and I'm going to ask you this one last question because we have 3 minutes, and then we'll talk about the book in a minute. And this is from What the Hey, and it says, how many species do you think are here visiting the Earth?
I would assume there's at least 5 different types, probably more. And who knows how many that just kind of come pop in and zip out? And what about time travel? You know, how far are we advanced in time travel? How many of those visitors are time travelers as well? You know, that's a whole other topic that's very interesting. Yeah, I think, you know, we got the reptilians, we got the Greys. You know, maybe there's the Arctic. What was the Nordic looking? You know, the Aryan, or weren't they like the blonde, blue eyes?
It would be the Nordics.
Right. So and plus, I'm sure there's a few more. You know, the Long Walkers. You know, I want to see one. You know, like I want to see them all. You know, like come on. You know, but then again, the problem is just because an alien appears in the White House lawn doesn't mean it's actually an alien. It could be some like special effects. Like, you know, the whole government psyop, right? So, you know, we have all these conundrums we have to deal with, and all these psyops and military operations and genuine aliens. You know, it's bananas, really. Like, how many? Can't we just, you know something? Can we just at least learn a little bit of the truth? You know, it's not that scary, right? It's kind of interesting.
It is. I mean, there's always stuff to look into and research and dig around. But I looked at the clock. I got 1 minute. If somebody wants to get a copy of your book, where should they go, and give out your webpage and all that good information quickly, please?
Okay, so they could get it on Amazon. It's probably cheaper. It's in Barnes & Noble. Google it. It'll come up. It's most independent bookstores. You could add me on Facebook. You know, go to my blog page. I write about different types of topics.
And so, what's your blog page called?
XaviantHaze.blogspot.com. The Metaphysical Library is XaviantVision.com. If you just Google Xaviant Haze, all that will come up. And you know, I'm curious what kind of questions you have, so you can write me there, and I'll try to answer them.
Cool. Time's up. Pencils down. Xaviant, we got to go. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
It was great. Thank you so much.
I had a great time. All right, you have a good night.
You too.
All right, that's Xaviant Haze. His book is Aliens in Ancient Egypt. And we'll be back with Lyle Blackburn after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.